There is so much beauty in stillness. We are human beings. Our duty, first and foremost, is to be. Breathe in and breathe out, my friend. You still have time to be all that you want to be.
Hello, welcome to Cosmic Heartist, Anisha. It is such a pleasure to have you here. This has been, I want to say, months, maybe even a year in the making. And I'm glad that we finally both got the time to sit down and have this conversation, or actually record this conversation, because of course we've been having so many of these conversations, but of course never recorded them. But there is no better time because you have your book coming out, or
I
is
just
today
got it.
release day? Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
just
got
got
it in my
it.
hands in the mail.
Show it to us. So I would love for you to introduce yourself, show us your book, tell us a little bit about what you love and about yourself.
Well, hi, I'm so excited to be here with you. This feels like it's been a long time coming because we are really good friends. So I feel that it makes it easier for me to be here. I am many things actually. I can't exactly identify myself to one thing. So I love art and I enjoy writing, hence the book. I have a bakery. I also work with other things. I paint. I believe like I don't think I like to box myself into one thing because I think humans can do a lot of things, but a lot of times we say we're this or we're that. So I guess I'm an artist in every way.
I love that. And that's exactly also why it's perfect to have you here. I call this podcast Cosmic Heartist. And the cosmic just comes in because I work with astrology a lot, but Heartist is I believe we all are heartists, and I love having heartists on this podcast. So you exemplify that. So thank you for
Well,
being here.
thank you. So do you. And I'm so glad to be here with you because I know you on a human level and it's just so nice to see you flourishing in this way as well.
I appreciate you. And aren't those just some of the best friendships that we're able to kind of be there for each other, watching each other succeed, cheering each other on, being there through the process without pressure? I think that's one of my favorite things about our friendship. There is no pressure, yet there is always that cheering, always that like there is a shoulder to lean on. There is someone that's going to be like, yeah, you can do it, do it, post it, or like publish the book or
Yeah.
create the painting or whatever it is. It's like we're always that for each other. And I think that's so precious to have women who support women in that way.
Yeah, and it's such a like warm feeling because I remember the place where we met as well. It was such a different space and a different time. It almost feels like a different world, but it's like our friendship has always carried through. And it's funny because I knew it right away, like the moment we met, that we just had this like instant like soul connection. And I just knew like this will be my best friend. And yeah, I'm just so glad for connections and relationships like that because I think in this world, like we go through so many things and so many phases. And when we don't have those friendships, life is really different.
And that makes me think of I can't remember who said it, but there is this quote about how we only understand ourselves when we're reflected back to ourselves in conversation. And it's like it's such a gift to have women who reflect that, like artists, right? Artists. It's so nice to be an artist reflecting an artist, because then we also realize like we aren't boxed in, and we when we start boxing each other in, we start teaching each other, hey, wait, you said you don't want to be boxed in. And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, thank
It's
you for
like
looking out
you
for me.
reflect what you don't see. So it's always nice to have that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's rewind a little bit. So for everyone listening, Anisha and I met when Anisha lived in Manila very briefly, but currently she is back in Bangkok. Do you want to talk about maybe a transition of going from here back to home, and anything that you want to share from that before we kind of delve into where you are now with your work and what you're creating.
Yeah, sure. I think I have to start by saying the best part about being in Manila for me was that I came into contact with you. So no matter what I was there for and what I came back for, I'm just so glad that we became friends. I'll just share briefly, nothing too much in detail. I was married and I moved to Manila, and then it didn't work out. So my home is Bangkok. I moved back. Life, it's only been about, I moved back April last year, so it's only been about a year and a half. And I would say, like, the place that I was in when we met and the place that I'm in now is such a different space. And I mentioned this in my book as well, because I really think, like, things that we go through, like, also shape, like, where we're meant to be today. And I think I learned so much more than anything. And the space that I'm in today is a space that I feel really content. Of course, there's always things that we want to improve, we want to grow, we want to learn, but I would say I'm finally embracing who I am and what I'm called here to do. And writing has just been like such a tremendous part of my growth, my healing. I've been writing for over 7 years. And I think it's the only time in my life, because I can be quite hard on myself. Like, I always strive for perfectionism and I always want to be the best. And I expect a lot out of myself. And I think when it comes to writing, like, it's the only space that I don't do that at all. Even my book, like, it's not perfect. There's a lot of things when I see it, I'm like, it could be better, but I really actually don't even care. Like, I'm like, I really wanted to write this book. I wanted to publish it. It's here. And how people perceive it, it's like totally okay for me. And that's not my experience with a lot of other things in my life. Like, I always want to, like, have people say, "Oh wow, that's great. That's great. You're doing a good job." But with my writing, it's the only space I don't feel that. So I feel it's the most authentic to who I am and where I am in my journey. And it's ironic that it's published now after having gone through, like, quite a difficult year, I would say. So it's definitely nice.
Synchronicities, right? And I think everything happens exactly when it's meant to. And when we met, so if you moved back home a year ago, we met 2 years ago,
Just over to, yeah.
a little over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And back then, you had said that you were trying to put together a coffee table book, with photos and like written pieces. And
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to also put together a book. I didn't know what kind of book I wanted to put together, but I was
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, if you're talking about a coffee table book and you're talking about putting photos in books, that sounds like such a cool idea, because I have like 60,000 photos in my camera album and I
Fuji,
want to do the
Fuji.
same.
You
So
take the
many
best
Fuji.
Fuji photos. Thanks for introducing me to that, by the
So
way.
many Fuji photos. You're welcome. It makes everything better, I feel like. But yeah,
Yes.
just so many photos. And I'm like, oh my God, there is the opportunity to do this too. Um, so you kind of opened me up to that idea as well. But as like the year progressed, I was like, oh wait, it's not a photo book, it's a poetry book.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a fascinating shift in my brain. And then that kind of started shifting after you had already left. That's when I was like, oh wait, it's a poetry book. And we also knew that you still wanted to write your book. And so I remember catching up last June, because I have a note in my Evernote that says catch up with Anisha for July, last
Yeah.
July.
Yeah.
Catch up with Anisha and check if she's compiled all of her pieces, because we
Mm-hmm.
were supposed to do that for each other. But after we had that call that we said that we would start compiling our pieces in June, I actually did start compiling my pieces, and I guess you did too, which is how you came up with this book. But we didn't check back in with each other last July. But
Mm-hmm.
funnily enough, this July, we're both like, you have your book ready. It's complete. It's in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And I have my first draft, which is still something, but it's so like
I can't
crazy to
wait.
think
I can't
about.
wait for your book to be out as well. Your poems are amazing. and I just can't wait for the world to like get to experience that as well. It seems daunting, but I think once you do it, like it feels so nice. It's like you see all of your stuff like in one place, and it's great.
And it's tangible.
Yeah.
So cool. How does it feel having your book in your hands?
My judging personality is already like judging the size of it. I'm like, it's printed bigger than I thought it would be. But in a way, then my other mindset is like, it's great because since it's a bit larger than I expected, it has room for people to make notes and destroy the book, which is what I do with most of my books. I read so much and it's just all highlighted and notes and everything. So actually, I'm really happy with it.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because I feel like there are so many people who don't want to write on their books. And I grew up thinking this, right? I grew up thinking I want my books to be so clean. I want the spine to not be bent. I want it to look perfect. I want it to look like amazing condition. And then in the last 1 year, I've just gone nuts. Like I've been doing it for study books. Of course, I underline
Mhm.
books, but in the last 1 year, especially with poetry books, oh my God, the number of like underlines I have just because like the gravity of some sentences, it's like, oh my God, I want to etch that in my heart forever.
Yeah,
And
you
it's like
want that
when
in
we're
your life.
underlining,
Yeah.
exactly. And when we're underlining, we're putting emphasis on it. And so I love how you said, like, there is space for people to destroy it because in destroying it, they're recreating
There's so much space for everyone to make it their own.
it.
Like it's my book, I wrote it, but I feel like anyone's hands it goes into, like it's theirs.
Yeah, and it looks like it has enough space for people to even write reflections after
Mhm.
reading what you've written. And that is the type of writing that you do, I feel. It's the type of writing that pulls reflections out of us, that makes us really like just sit and think for a bit and be like,
Mhm.
"Oh, actually, that's so potent." And then when we sit with it, we get our own meaning of it. And when we do get our own meaning of it, then writing it down makes it that much more precious because then it's like you're giving your piece, like a piece of your heart to the world, and the world is using that piece to share their art on it as well. And then it automatically
It's like
becomes a collaborative piece.
because I think like art is so subjective, right? And I always like to like believe that. Like for me, like when I write, of course, it's what I write, but I feel whoever like reads it, their perception or how they will understand it will be reflective to where they are in their lives. And I think for me, like for a person that loves to read, and I would say I read a lot, like the books that resonate most with me are the ones when I read and I'm able to form my own opinion or my own thoughts about how I see certain things. Because I think there's so many ways to look at the same thing. And I think that's a lot of times that's where society or where people get lost, that they feel that if they believe something or if they're doing something a certain way, like that's the only way. And I don't resonate with this fact at all because I think like we both could be going through the same thing, but our perception and our experience of it will be completely different. And I find that like really beautiful. Like I think that's one of the most beautiful things I find about humans is that we're like all so different. And I think the diversity is really what brings us together. Like me and you, for example, I think at our core and at our heart, we're very similar, but our ways and our everything is different. And I think there's so much beauty in that.
Exactly. And just as we started recording, we were talking about how I was saying I'm trying to add more structure to my life, and you were
Mm-hmm.
saying you're trying to do a little bit of destructuring to your life to add a little bit of spontaneity. And I think we've always been like that for each other, right? As we spoke about,
Yeah.
like we've always had that complementing side, that you've been going through something and I'm like, oh my God, I've been there, but I'm not there right now. And I can help you from this perspective. And then you're
Mm-hmm.
going through some, and then I'm going through something. And then you're like, hey, I've been there. I can help you with that. And it's amazing because it's kind of like, because we're friends, it's an insider perspective. But because we're, probably because we're in different countries, it's also an outsider perspective. So it's cool because we get both. And it's amazing because with friends, we don't feel bad. You know, we don't feel bad when we're told like this or that, or like healthy criticism, for
Yeah.
example, which is very important. But of course, we all have like humans, man. We have big egos and we don't want
Yeah.
to be hurt. But when it's coming from a friend, from an insider and outsider perspective, it's so much more, um, I want to say like wholesome, and
Because
it
you know
allows
that
us to be
friend,
more integrated.
like, you know, when I feel when you know that friend like loves you and has your back, and it's, you know, when the friend says it, it's coming from that space. So it's like a lot more like embraced and welcome. But when it's like an outsider, then a lot of times our ego gets in the way and it's like, why are they criticizing me? Like, look at them. But I feel like with a friend, like, that's never how you really feel.
So you spoke about humans and you spoke about diversity and you spoke about how we all are like different, right? And I feel that's why it's important that we all share our art and share what we
Mm-hmm.
have inside us, right? Because then we actually realize that we're not that different after all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, However, I also want to ask you something that we've spoken about before is I love your sense of style and I love the way that you dress and I love the way that you express yourself through the clothes that you wear. And
Thank
like,
you.
yes, and you don't hold back, you know. You're not like, "Oh my God, that's too many patterns. I can't wear that. That's not going to look bad." You're like, "Hey, that's so many patterns. I want all the patterns."
I
Um
want it all.
and which is amazing, right? Because so many of us, like myself included, shy away from patterns or things that are different, or, you know, style that like is too much or too loud.
But it's
Um
interesting you brought this up now. After you ask me whatever you want, I'm gonna share a bit about where I am with that right now.
yeah, yeah, okay. So I basically, for anybody struggling to express themselves through their outfits, um, what would be your advice? Because I'll tell you why I'm asking. I'm someone that goes into my closet, and I know you do this too, but still, what you come out with is still so beautiful. So I'm someone who goes into my closet, tries like three different outfits on, takes them off, gets really upset, and is like, I don't like anything. My clothes suck. And then I go and wear like a black tank top and I don't know, random shorts. So and for everyone that's listening and has no idea why we're laughing, it's because Anisha is currently wearing a black tank top. But still, I think you're really good at like expressing yourself through the way that you dress. So how would you suggest for people to do that if you have any ideas or any input?
Yeah, sure. I think that's such a great question. And I think that for me, like, I really dress for myself. And I think that's a huge part of what makes it fun getting dressed. Like, I can't say like every time I get dressed, like I have days when I'm just like trying on everything and I just don't like anything. Of course, I have those days, but I notice that I dress a lot for myself. Like, I'll look the nicest sometimes when I'm going nowhere and meeting one person. And when I'm going to a huge party where tons of pictures are being taken, like that day I'm just not really bothered and I'll just wear. So for me, like, I realize a lot of people dress with other people in mind. Like, I notice when they're gonna be seen by a lot of, then they'll dress up nice, but when in their everyday life they don't, it's almost like they don't feel deserving of putting on their best outfits or their nicest clothes. And I think we should never see dressing up in that light. Like, for me, when I walk into the closet, like, I see my clothes, I see how I'm feeling, and dressing according to my mood and how I'm feeling is really a game changer, because then you're really happy with what you pick out. And although my style has like changed quite a bit from when we met, like, I would say I used to wear a lot more like loud outfits and more colorful things. And I realized that's not really what I liked, but it was at the time my husband what he liked. And that was a lot of the influence. And every time I would wear black, gray, colors that I actually liked, and I love these colors, he would tell me you should wear like bright, like super bright clothing. And so I started doing that, but I realized that's actually not my style at all. Like, I'll wear it occasionally, and but those are not the outfits that I feel my best in. My style is quite simple. I like to pair things together, and I love accessories. I feel like it really brings out the outfit. So I think it's discovering what feels right to you, and then it's much easier to dress within that. And I think it's so important to show up looking our best and feeling our best. Like, because I think like dressing up is not really something we do for like a partner, for friends, for anyone else. It's really for ourselves. If we wake up and we dress like a slob and we're just gonna like be like that, like we will feel that reflects on how we'll feel about ourselves. But if we dress up and say, "Oh, I deserve to look my best and wear my best outfits," then your whole day you're like feeling so great. So I think that really helps me.
I think growing up is realizing that our whole lives is just a game of dress up. Like we are allowed to use our entire lives as a game of dress up and wear
Mm,
whatever the heck we want to without anybody judging it or anybody asking us what we're wearing or why we're wearing it. And
mhm,
how interesting that you said that back then it was because of him that you were dressing in colors. But I feel like a part of you, um, a part of you also associated with the colors, maybe because you needed more color in your life at that time. And so that's how you brought out the color. And I think that's a gift, knowing like maybe you didn't know it consciously, but subconsciously you knew that
mhm,
that's exactly what you were doing, which is why you were doing it anyway, right? Because
mhm.
if he was telling you to do it and you didn't want to do it, there was no way you would have done it. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
you know me really well. I'm super stubborn, and that is such an interesting thing that you pointed out. It's so true. I think it's probably the way I was feeling inside. Like I needed color in my life, so I added that with my clothing. Now the way that I'm feeling inside, I don't feel I need color on my body to take like make me feel a certain way.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
your nails being black and your shirt being black, you're like, I have color everywhere else. I can dress in darkness.
Exactly. It's balance. It's all about the balance.
Yeah, definitely. And I love how you said that you dress for yourself and no one else. And I think as women that work from home, like I know you don't work from home all the time, but
Mhm.
as a woman that works from home, I think it's really important to actually do that, to dress our best because there are days, say that I wake up, like put on my workout clothes and drag myself through the whole day because I'm telling myself I need to work out, but and I have my workout clothes so that I can work
Yeah.
out, but then never work out, right? But that feels shitty as compared to like waking up being like, okay, fine, it's okay if I work out or not, but I'm gonna put on this cute outfit first.
Mhm.
And how much more likely am I to actually work out if I put on a cute outfit first and then later in the day be like, okay, I feel so good about myself, I'm gonna work out, rather than
Mhm.
putting on like a workout outfit in the morning and then dragging myself through the whole day being like, I still haven't worked out, need to work out, still haven't
And
worked out.
if you don't, then you just make yourself feel horrible that you didn't work out. So it's like the whole day you're procrastinating working out, then you don't work out, and then you're like making yourself feel bad about it.
Exactly. And then there is the complete opposite, right? Of where some days I'll get up and feel so good about myself and put on a cute outfit. And then Navs will get home from the office and he's like, where did you go today? And I'm like, nowhere. And he's like,
Just home.
but you're wearing a dress and earrings and a necklace. I'm like, yeah, I was working. And I feel like the texture and the quality of the work that we produce when we are dressed well um is also like so much better. It's like lighter, it's less dense. It's
Mhm.
just so much more alive.
Yeah, I think it's super important, and I think dressing like for ourselves is a game changer. Because I think the moment we dress for other people or anything in our lives, really, when we do it, like, because I paint a lot and I consider myself an artist. I always have been since I was young, and I think the moment that I have other people in the picture, like when I paint, and I'm like, will this person like it? Will they like it? What will they feel about it? It's not when I produce my best work at all. I never feel good about what I'm doing. And I think that's something I've really essentially struggled with my whole life. Like, I think as a young child, like, I always wanted to be like a certain way in the eyes of other people. And I always tried to please people on that basis. And then I diverted the opposite way completely. You know, I was just like, screw them all. So then I just went in the completely different direction where I just didn't care at all what anybody had to say. And now I feel I've finally come to middle ground in my life where I feel it's a good place to be, because essentially we have to live in this world. We consist in this world with people in this world. But it's important also for me to have my own space and world within it, where I do things to make myself happy because it makes me happy, but I'm not harming or I'm not affecting anyone else.
I think every woman needs that so deeply. Like
Mhm.
a space of our own within the world where we're not harming or affecting anyone else, and we're just going like deep into ourselves and we're doing
Mhm.
whatever the heck we want. And it's our own space. And
Yeah.
it's so precious to carve that space for ourselves, because for so many women, right, when we were younger, we were taught to smile, to be nice, to be courteous, like all the words, right? But then we grow up and we're like, fuck it all. Like,
Yeah, just
I want to do none of it. um and it's so graceful to find that balance of, guess what, I can't, like, I don't care, but I found that space within myself and within my own space where I don't care. And
yeah,
so when I show up outwardly, I can care a little bit. And then when I come back home, I don't care again.
yeah,
It's just knowing that we have that space where we cannot care. And that space that we don't care is exactly the space that we create our art in. Because like you said, the second we start overthinking it, the second our ego comes in, then we maybe don't want to share our art anymore. And
mhm,
then what a sad journey, because we went through the whole like mosh posh of creating this art, and then we're finally like, okay, I'm going to share it with the world, and then our ego comes to play and then we're like, oh my god, I'm not going to share it with the world, and then it just gets stuck in us. And then, I mean, I feel like that's just like a series of things that happens after, which is just deep constriction, because we
yeah.
created something. It was trying to come out of us. We almost had it out, but then we like shoved it back deeper in. And that's, I think, when we get most concerned about what other people are saying even more.
Yeah, I think a huge part with that, like regarding what you just said, is also like creating things and then just leaving it. Like I have realized like I've just reached this place in myself where now like I just want to create things, I share it, and how it's perceived, like that's not in my control. There's always going to be people that resonate with me and are in my frequency and my circle, and then there's always going to be people that judge you, and it's inevitable. I feel like the only way to not get judged is just sit in your room, lock yourself in, and do nothing, because no matter what you do, what decision you choose, what path you choose in life, like there's always going to be people that have something to say about it. And I think it's reaching a place that is really okay with that. Like for me today, if I create something and someone doesn't like it, like I don't even try to defend or try to make them like it. I'm like, that's okay. Like, thanks for like seeing it and giving me your opinion. Like, you're entitled to that. I didn't create it for you. And it's okay. And then the people that love it, like it's great as well. But I think also it's important to not use that as validation or create because they love it. And I think that's so much of what creation is about. It's just really for ourselves.
And the modern world has kind of like made us forget that because of social media, I feel
Oh
like,
yeah,
and this,
that's a
and
big one.
wanting validation and wanting the likes. And when there are only 2 likes in a post, like, it's like, should I have even created that, and that doesn't happen anymore, but that used to happen. And I'd be like, why did I even share that? I shouldn't have shared that. But I love that you said, thank you for sharing your opinion, I didn't create it for you. That is the most beautiful response to give anyone that ever criticizes us in our whole lives. Like,
Mhm.
I don't like your outfit. Thank you for your opinion. I'm not dressing for you. Or,
Yeah.
I don't like your book. Thank you. It's not yours. Or, I don't like your food. Thank you. I didn't make it for you to eat. I made it for me. Like
It's
everything.
yeah, it's not rude, but at the same time, it's like the truth. Like I really didn't create it for you. Like, I mean, when I was creating it, I didn't have you in mind and be like, I hope this person loves it.
Yeah, exactly. Just coming back to the purpose, I feel like, and the intention. Okay, so I want to take this into your painting. before we get into your book. And I would love to talk a little bit about the way you paint, the intricacy of it, your process when you paint. How do you begin? And for anybody that's listening and, of course, doesn't see us, Anisha creates incredible paintings that are black and white, usually black and white, right?
Yeah,
And they're
90%. Yeah.
very, very, very intricate. There are very thin lines, and maybe I'll do a screenshot of this so so people can see it. But this is like super intricate, dude. I look at it
I
on a
have a lot
regular basis and
around
I'm like, wow.
me, but
Show it.
that would, yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of paintings.
I love them. I love them.
Yeah, I'm working on another one right now. Not sure if you can cut it, but yeah, this is my latest one.
Yeah. I love your art. I love your art. Okay,
Thank
so share
you.
with us, what is your inspiration? What is your creative process? How do you begin? And how do you pull through?
I think for me, like I've always been into art, like ever since I was young. I would say that's my first love. Like now I do many things, but growing up, like I always painted, I always drew, like that's what I studied in university. For me, art has always been a way to like express myself. And I also feel that the reason behind the intricacy and why it's so detailed and why I personally enjoy that kind of art is it's like meditation for me. Like I can be a person that has a lot on my mind and sometimes it's just a lot. So I feel that when I sit down and I paint and it's intricate and I really need to concentrate to make it like the way that it is to be, like I feel that's meditation for me. And I think that's the reason I enjoy it so much because I just love it when my mind is like still and quiet. And when I paint, I would say that's one of the only places in my life where I really get that. The gym and art. Yeah.
Always the gym always has to be in there.
Every morning.
Oh my God, your dedication really always inspires me. You know that. Okay, so when you're painting, do you have music on, or what is your process look like? How do you, I just want to like imagine, paint a picture for us of a painting day.
A painting day. Wow, I feel so blessed when I have those now because I'm called to do so many things. I feel like in the process of trying to be a, you say a lot of things about me are inspiring to you, but for me, like I find you so inspiring because you've just carved out this life for yourself that feels the most true to you. And I can't say that I'm exactly in that place right now in my life because I feel like I am working in a business, like in a family business, which is not really, I believe, my path. Then I love art, painting. So I'm trying to do that. Then I'm working on, and I run a whole full-fledged bakery. So that's another thing. So I feel like painting days are very rare for me, but I have painting hours. And when I do have them, basically, I always have music on. I'm a person that always has music around, and I just sit there and I love painting faces as well. If you've seen any of my paintings, which obviously you have, but for those of you who haven't, like I paint a lot of women and faces and flowers. And I think I really resonate with that. Not to say that I'm a feminist in one kind of, but I really believe in the power of women. And I really embody that, I believe, because I feel like women are so powerful and we don't really give ourselves enough credit. Like, and I think that for me, like I always tell myself, like I really believe in equality and I believe like in everybody in this world is equal. I'm not like a person that is forceful about it, but deep down in my belief, like women are the best. So I paint a lot of like faces and a lot of woman figures. And yeah, when I sit, I don't really have a process, I would say. I mainly use black and white, black paint. So it's very easy. I feel when I start painting with color, it's more decisions. Then I'm mixing the colors, then I'm procrastinating where to place these colors. I can do it. I had to study everything. So I used to paint a lot with color, but it's not really the style that I resonate with anymore.
I think it's so cool that you have your own like personal style of painting. Like I feel like if I saw your painting anywhere, I'd be like, oh, that's Anisha.
Mhm.
And that knowing of like, hey, that's mine. Like, or for anyone you know to be like, hey, that's hers. And it's
Mhm.
associated to you. And it's your art. So naturally it is associated to you. But I think it's just so cool to have that signature style. What type of music do you listen to when you paint? And how do you choose what to listen to for the day?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I feel like my playlist is like completely all sorts, and but the music that I resonate most with is blues, rock. Like that's always been the music that I love. So I feel when I paint, like I just put on a favorite song and then I just let it go from there. Because otherwise, I'm too fixated on which music I want to listen to, and that's not really the focus. The focus is away from the painting then. So yeah, and I try not to have it on too loud, like it's just in the background, so I'm still with myself and with my painting. And one more thing that I think I missed, why I love painting so much, is because it's actually the only time, like in my days, where I feel I can just sit there. Like I'm quite a person that always needs to, like I find it very hard to focus on one thing at one time. Like my mind is quite spread out, hence the many things that I do in my life. So I feel painting is probably the only thing where I'm like present completely in that moment. And believe that's why I love it the most.
Okay, so let's divert from painting into your book.
Mm,
Okay, so you said you've been writing for the last 7 or so years. Probably you've been writing since you were a kid. I mean, a lot of
mm-hmm,
us that want to write books have been writing journals or writing little pieces since we were kids. And and hold on. On that note, I want to get back to what you were saying about women being the best. Totally resonate, totally agree, which is why most of the guests that I have on this podcast are women, is
yeah.
because just the power that we carry when we can focus ourselves. And I find it so interesting because the masculine is about structure, right? And the feminine is about flow and creativity. But when we can find that masculine structure to put into our feminine creativity, we are unstoppable. Like
Mm-hmm,
the amount of things we can create, the amount of things we can share, the way we can make people feel, my god, like the way we feel in the presence of a woman versus in the presence of a man, like that flavor, that texture, that just the air, is so different when you're around a woman versus around a man. So yes, 100%. And then going back to, yes, probably you were writing when you were a kid. And the way
mm-hmm,
that came up was like, I think that a lot of girls, a lot of young girls found their voices like expressing themselves through a pen and paper, because a lot of times we weren't really allowed to talk about what we were feeling, or like big thoughts or big feelings. More often than not, it was more about the things that were accepted by family and accepted by
mm-hmm.
society. So the stuff that you have in your book, are those things you started writing 7 years ago?
Well, I have so much writing and I didn't want the book to be so long. Like I had a like 200 pages for me was what I wanted to start with. I would say I had about like that I had saved 3,000 pages worth of writing. Now that's a lot of writing, and I'm sure I had more, but these are just the ones that were like structured, kind of not journal. I journal every day. Like I've been doing that for I wake up, meditate, journal, gym. So that's I've been doing that for years. So if I don't count that writing, then I have about, but if I count all of that, then it's a lot of writing. But obviously, when you put it in a book, like I had to structure it in some kind of way. Like I still wrote for myself, and it's still very much like a journal, but it's just structured.
So how did you choose what to include in the book?
Mhm.
And can you read to us your favorite thing that you've written
Mm.
that's in the book?
How did I choose is quite a difficult one. I think that's what took me the longest because I didn't want to miss out naturally, and I was like trying to think what's the best pieces. And I had someone really close to me actually said that, you know what, like you shouldn't judge like what you write, like that this is good and that's bad. Maybe what you think is not as good resonates with someone, and what you think is great resonates with someone else. So there's really no picking and choosing. Of course, there's few pieces I read and I'm like, wow, that packs a punch. There's some other ones I read, but it could be different for everyone. So to say that I have a favorite also would be difficult. Like there's many that um many that resonate with me. I mean, I wrote them all. So yeah,
Open it to
it's
a random page and read whatever shows up. Let's do that
oh
instead.
okay, this one is random. And actually it's one of the ones I like a lot. So I really didn't pick it. So I'm glad that it's on this page. It's The Beauty of Stillness. So it's basically, my book is structured in like, there's a title and then there's paragraphs below it, and I will read it now. Remind yourself every once in a while that it's okay to slow down, to breathe, to be aware, and to be still. Don't compromise your now for some unknown future. We are always thinking beyond. We rarely, if ever, live in the moment we are in. But this moment is certain. It is ours, and we should be still to witness and appreciate it. Whether it's a marvelous time in your life or whether it's not, it's still yours, and it's meant to be savored and experienced to its fullest potential. Every season of our lives teach us something. It's a shame if we don't extract its lessons. Those lessons are what gives us resilience and wisdom to help us live our lives to its fullest potential. There is so much beauty in stillness. We are human beings. Our duty, first and foremost, is to be. Breathe in and breathe out, my friend. You still have time to be all that you want to be.
That's so beautiful. I had like the right side of the top of my head tingling as you were reading
Oh,
that. Thank you for reading that. That's so beautiful. And that kind of really encapsulates the conversation that we've had so far.
yes. That's why it's beautiful that that page is what came up. I was like, wow, like that's really what I strive and tell myself every day. And essentially, like, I wrote this book. Sure, like people are going to read it, but it's really for me. Like it's really how I feel and what I aspire to have in my life.
Yeah. Oh, I super feel that, especially with my poetry that I've been writing after my dad
Mhm.
transitioned. Um like for example, yesterday, oh my God, yesterday I felt so bad for a while in the morning and I felt like I was gonna drown in a pool of tears. And then I
Mhm.
found a post which I shared on my story, which was I'm sorry for your loss. And it was like a poem about everything that we're sick of after losing someone.
Mhm.
And then reading that made me think about a poem that I had written while I was in the States before coming back home while we were doing my dad's prayer in the Gurdwara. So it's a
Mhm.
Gurdwara, for everyone who doesn't know what's a Gurdwara, it's a Sikh place of worship. So how cool actually to write a poem in the Gurdwara, right? Like
Yeah.
just the frequency of the place, the frequency and the sacredness of the place. But anyway, what came to me through that poem was about how it's not a loss, right? And the verbiage of death. That's the title of the poem, On the
Mhm.
Verbiage of Death. After reading the thing that I read yesterday and shared on my story, it reminded me of this poem that I had written. And then I shared that after. And then I went back and read that poem, bless you. And I
Thank
was
you.
like, wow, that's exactly what I needed to hear right now. And
Mhm.
that kind of put not a cap, but it kind of I want to say it allowed some steam to dry the tears. Like what I'm thinking about is like condensation and how like the steam comes in and the evaporation rather, how the steam comes in and the tears dry. So it's like my poem that I wrote at some point in my life was the steam that I needed today, I mean yesterday in my life to kind of calm down all the water that was coming up. So all of that to say, I totally resonate with how you're saying, like everything that you've written for yourself. You've written it
Mhm.
so that at some point in your life, you can open a page and be like, oh my God, that's exactly what I needed to hear. And the best part is, past you did it for future you. Um,
Mhm.
it's not someone else who did it, it's you. And when we see ourselves looking out for ourselves that much, one, like we become so much more compassionate and graceful. Two, we become that much kinder to other people as well.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it all starts with us, right? Like the title of my book is "The True Magic is Within." And I realize like the way we see our world is just really nothing but a reflection of ourselves. Because when we have like compassion and grace and when we don't judge ourselves, it's so much easier to practice that with people around us because actually like people are just doing the best that they can. It's sometimes it's hard to see in a situation and it's hard to comprehend when you're in that situation because everything's always taken personally as human beings. It's like, why is this person doing this? Like, why is this happening to me? But it's like when we can remove ourselves from that, then we really just see, we learn to change and reframe the questions. It's like for me now, like I just ask like, what is this teaching me? Like, how can I grow from this experience? What, like maybe this happened in my life because it needed to happen for me to reach another stage in life. And I think that's a really valid thing when we're going through difficult times, like to have that perspective instead of drowning ourselves in our misery. Sure, there's a space for that too. And I'm sure, like, you know, having gone through what you have gone through, like me, my own personal stuff, like, I think to heal, we also have to let ourselves sit there and feel that. But then it's important also, I feel, not to drag that out too long because then we just get sucked into a hole that actually we don't need to be in.
Exactly. And I mean, studies show that it takes 90 seconds to fully feel an emotion, which is
Mhm.
just a minute and a half. Like that's all we need. Like if we're like super crying or super yelling or super whatever, like we just need a minute and a half to really feel that and then technically we can let it go. But like you said, and like I feel like sometimes when it's something so when the gravity is so large of something, we do need to allow longer than a minute and a half, right? But it's also being aware that we're doing that to ourselves, you know? Like every time I go into these holes, like when I think about my dad and I miss him so much, I'm conscious that I'm building a hole and crawling into it by looking at photos or by reading our old WhatsApp
Mhm.
messages, you know? I'm consciously building a hole. But what's important here is that we know that we have the resources to jump back out of the hole when we feel like we're getting too deep in.
Mhm.
And I think like not a lot of us have those resources. So becoming aware before we jump into holes, like do we have the resources to come out of this hole? Because it's hard, you know, it's when we get so wrapped up into an emotion, it's really tough to pull
Come out
ourselves
of it.
out. But
Yeah.
also knowing that it only takes 90 seconds to feel a full emotion, then we're like, okay, I've been feeling this for 20 minutes now. I'm way overdue. It's time to stop and I can go do something else, you
And
know?
I think it's also having like supportive people in our lives, like friends, partners, whatever it is, like that know us deeply and also like recognize us and make us aware of like, you know, like when we're getting into this hole, like for me, I find it so valid if someone like reflects. And I think that's a big part of like having your ego like removed. And I think it's such a liberating process as well because I think so many of the times like we build these like walls around ourselves. I know I do this, I can't speak for anyone else, but I always want people to perceive me like I'm okay, like I'm strong, I have it all together. And I think that can be like really exhausting as well, and that's been the hardest part for me to like tell myself that it's okay, you know, like I'm not perfect. I always hold space for people if they're not feeling great, and I'm always listening to them, be it friend, and it doesn't change the way I see them at all. So why can't I extend that grace back to myself? And I think that's something I've really had to learn over the years. I'm still learning because it's still hard. Like for me, I find it really hard like to just be completely, and I feel I found that in you. So that's why I feel that closeness. But it's not a lot of people that I feel that with.
Thank you for allowing me to see you and all that you are. It's always been such a gift. I've always felt so special to be able to know you and just to know the nitty gritty of you because, you know, people know us from the outside, but it's very few people that know us from the inside and know the nitty
Mm.
gritty in our lives. And I'm grateful to know the nitty gritty in your life.
Likewise.
Okay, so rounding up, I have just a couple more, three more questions that I want to get to. The first one that I would love for you to talk about in as much or as little detail as you would like is your bakery, because while you lived here, you were kind of operating your bakery out of your home and you were
Mhm.
selling your super yummy
Oh,
treats. Oh my God, how I
you're
miss
you're
your cookies.
you're always so, yeah, I would always send cookies to you and Navs, and I wish I could send them from here. You guys have to come visit me in Bangkok, by the way.
Yes, yes, he's
Please
gonna hear
come.
this when he listens to this episode, and then we're gonna come.
Yes. It's like it will make him like be like, yes, we have to go.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so yeah, Anisha makes incredible cookies, incredible banana bread, incredible cakes, and they're all vegan.
Vegan, yeah, most are vegan. They're all gluten free, refined sugar free. It's healthy. Like I focus on just healthy desserts.
So if you're in Bangkok and you want healthy desserts, go check out Cacao and Love. So
Yes.
good. You are not gonna
Thank
regret
you.
it. I'm
Thank
like
you.
dreaming of your cookies as
You're
I
always
speak.
so kind and supportive. Like I just even I feel your love even from like a distance. It's beautiful. Your energy is like the best.
Thank you. It's because I'm talking to you and we're reflecting it off of each other, right? And I'm just remembering how, see, I mentioned your cookies and like I can see them in my mind's eye. And I'm remembering how many chocolate chips you have in your cookies. And I remember us having that conversation. And I want to bring it up because you're someone that's really taught me about, and fitting as a Taurus sun, like you've taught me so much about worthiness and about like just showing up and giving it all, even in the form of cookies. Like I
Mm,
remember you talking about how you put like all you fill your cookies with chocolate chips because you want every bite to have a chocolate chip. And more often than not, like people wouldn't do that because they don't want it to be too rich or too this or too that. But like the worthiness that you feel being like, hey, people need to have all of the chocolate chips. That shows a
mm.
lot about how you refer to and how you value yourself, which is so beautiful. And I wrote down something earlier as well, which is how you said some people don't feel deserving of dressing for themselves. And this is
Mm.
like the same line, right? It's just about feeling worthy enough. And when we feel worthy enough, then we kind of provide the same for other people. And I feel like you provide it literally with your hands in the form of things that you bake.
Aw,
And
thank
of
you.
course your art and of course your book, but you know, like when you're baking or when you're cooking, you're like literally touching each of the ingredients and putting it together and making it magic.
Yeah, that's actually a really I that's something really nice that you brought up, and it made me realize that I haven't really been looking at it that way recently, and I think that's why it's been harder to really, because I feel when I started this business, like it was I started in a difficult time in my life, I would say. It was 7, 8 years ago. Like obviously, but that's for another time. Like I'm not gonna bring that up, but it was something that I had started when I needed to divert my mind completely. So I became completely obsessed with this business. Like I started it from my house alone. And I remember like nights where I would just be baking till like 4 a.m. Like I wouldn't even go out like to meet anyone. Like I literally was just baking because like orders just came in. I don't know what it was, and people paid me money. So I had this pressure that I had to deliver, and I was alone. And baking does not take a little bit of time. Like baking is very time consuming. So I remember like for months, almost a year, I was doing this alone. Like then it really, people like really loved it. And I was like, wow, like people love my baking. Like I'm gonna start a bakery. So I hired like someone to help me, and that made things a lot easier. And before I knew it, like this, it just like blew up, and I opened a bakery. Like I just opened a dine-in like cafe, and it was not something I intended when I started the bakery. I really started it because I needed my mind to be diverted from something I was going through. I needed to be engrossed in something. And I think that's just the type of person I am. Like when I'm going through stuff, I need to be doing something. Otherwise, my mind can just really take a hold of me. Um, so yeah, fast forward to today, like the bakery is still running despite me moving away, coming back. It struggled a bit, like it's because people essentially buy the bakery because of me. That's how I started it. And I don't know if it's a right structure for a business, but it is my structure. When I'm here, the business is good. When I'm not, it's a little different. And I think it's a lot because I put that love into it. Like, I really believe that I want to give the customers the best. Hence the chocolate chips. Like, I don't care if I don't make that 10% extra profit, but I'm putting half a bag of chocolate chips in and they're the best quality that you would buy for yours at home. Like, and I really think that separates it from other, because there's so many bakeries. Like, living in a place like Bangkok, like the amount of online bakeries that are great are insane. So it's a lot of competition in that way. But I think for me, like, I've always just strived to give, like, if it's like a date and nut bar, like, you're gonna get nuts and dates in every bite, not like everything else, and a little bit of like dates and nuts.
That's amazing because I guess you create your bakery in a way that you would want to consume from a bakery,
Hmm.
right? Like you create what you'd want. And when you create what you'd want, then that way you're kind of automatically your first client. And when you shape your business after you being your first client, I think we want to give that much more to our business. And that's something that, of course, I'm still very beginner level and would definitely have to actually consult you about business and how you grew your business. But flowers, like that's how I feel about my flowers. It's arranging like these little things and then having them for myself and then knowing if I had it in my house, I would want it with this. And so that's how I arrange it for other people as well, because I
Hmm.
don't want anyone to be like, oh, I got so few flowers or oh, this doesn't look good, because I would never put it in my house if it doesn't look good. So
Hmm.
I think just like knowing that we're our own um, target market, as icky as that feels to say sometimes.
Yeah, but it's interesting you view me in this light and you think that I'm great at business, and but actually the reality is it's actually not true, because a lot of times, like, not true from what I hear from others. So this, I want to bring out this point where it's interesting how people perceive us. Like, different people perceive us so differently. Like, when I speak to someone that's great in business, like, I come from a business family background. Like, my parents, my family are all heavily business minded people. And I always hear, not to like, I love them to bits and we're super close, but they're always like, you're so creative, you need to brush up your business skills, you need to get with it with the numbers. And for me, I feel a lot of times I feel like that, and I always say I'm not good with numbers, I'm not good at business. And like someone close to me recently, like, don't say that, like, you're running a whole business, so what do you mean? And it's making money, it's not even breaking even. So you have a running business. Do you know how hard that is for people to achieve? Like, do you even realize? I think a lot of times I don't realize certain things. Like, I down credit or downplay a lot of things that I do. And I think we all have that in us in different ways. Just because I have these things going on, that doesn't mean that all these thoughts don't come into my mind. They do all the time. And constantly it's like a battle in my brain.
Yeah. But what's interesting is to, let's say, your parents or your family, right, who have a full-fledged running business from the traditional way of business, that was created back in the day. You're not running a full-fledged business to them, right? But to
Hmm.
you, who like is born in like 1993 as compared to them who were probably born in the 60s or 50s and like went through a whole different lifetime, like you're creating your business intuitively, like you're
Mhm.
creating it as you go and you're creating it based on what you love and you're creating it based on what you feel people want and you're creating it based on what people are asking you what people are asking of you. So actually, you are running exactly like your friend said, you are running a full-fledged business and you are creating it all. And just because you're not creating it according to the way that business was once described or once defined, it doesn't mean that you're not creating it, right? You're creating your own definition for business, which is much more magical and juicy than anything else because it's yours. Like nobody can take it away from you because like you've defined it for yourself. And I think that's precious in itself. And I love that you brought in the imposter syndrome and talking about how you also have these thoughts sometimes, because we all do, right? We all do, no matter how much we're doing in our lives, no matter how much we're faking it till we make it. Like when
Yep.
we have these deeper conversations, we realize no, everybody has that little voice in their mind being like, what the heck are you doing? Do you think you're doing it right? But
Yeah.
then it's like pushing through, like continuing to push through no matter what other people say and no matter what the little voice in our mind says, because ultimately it's about coming back to our heart and how does it feel, and if it still feels good, then it's still a good thing to do, and if it feels bad, then it's not necessarily the best thing to do for ourselves. But all of that to say, you are incredible at business, and I have watched you like leave your business in Bangkok, come here, recreate that business, leave here, go back there and recreate that business again. So, girl, give yourself some credit.
I never give up. If that's one thing about me, I think that's more than anything else. I never give up. Like, I feel that when we give up on ourselves, like, life is just, we must never, ever, ever give up on ourselves, because people will give up on us. People will say whatever they have to say. But I feel we have to still wake up every day and not give up on ourselves.
And you deserve credit for that. I
Thank
love
you.
it.
So do
I love all that
you.
you do. Thank
I feel
you.
you're like that in a lot of ways too. And I think sometimes like we don't realize what we are till we have someone reflect it back. Yeah, and I think that's what made me resonate with you. Like when we first met, I was like, this person is just so like I could feel your like aura and your love for life. And I think that just really resonated with me. And that was like almost like an anchor that kept me connected to my true essence and my true self. And like you almost reflected my voice back to me. So I think that's why it was so magical, that although I was in this surrounding that wasn't really me at all, I had you that was always reflecting me. And I think that is like the biggest beauty and blessing of our friendship.
And you say that, but it's a two-way street. Like I feel the exact same way. I think when we found each other, it was a year that I was really trying to recreate myself and really understand who I was. Like
Mhm.
who was I then? Because of course we've all lived so many different lives, and at that point I was learning who I was um as a wife, and
Mhm.
yet being able to create art, right? Tying
Mhm.
together this artist and this wife identity, and um, I think just having you there to like walk with me alongside it was also so much more. It made me feel much more calm, and I loved how whenever we would hang out, we would do cool stuff, right? We would do a road trip to the north, or we
Yeah.
tried that acrylic pouring thing one time and I completely failed. You did it. I completely
I
failed.
I wouldn't say mine wasn't a fail. I think it was just fun more than anything. Like,
We were working with a hair dryer trying to hair dry
yeah,
paint.
I
um,
remember that like so clearly. And like hanging out with you was like the joys of my like time there, honestly.
and those days will go by so freaking fast, right? We would
Hmm.
meet each other at like 1, and before we knew it, it was 5, and we're like, what
Hmm.
is happening and why is time crumbling? Um, so I mean, for everyone listening to this conversation, you can tell like the adoration that Anisha and I have for each other, and just the deep like soul connection I think that we found with each other from the time we met, because our relationship really progressed so beautifully after the first time we hung out, right? It just took that one hangout to be like, okay, when's the next, and when's the next, and when's the next. And also based on your story, I want to point out how important it is for any woman that's listening to this and going through something, like how important it is for you to find at least just one friend. Like one friend can make all the difference for you. Because when we women are together, we remember the magic that's inside of us, and we remember the creative potential. We remember the ability to shape our lives however we need to, even if that means making a difficult decision that will, like, I don't know, maybe shape the rest of your life. Do it, like, because you are capable of like creating again, birthing again, being again. So I think though, just the grace I have for you through everything that you've been through. It's incredible. Okay, rounding it up, two questions for you. Where can people
Mhm.
find you if they want to work with you? Well, when I say work with you, maybe how can they get your, I already mentioned about Cacao and Love, but where can they get your stuff? How can they buy your paintings if they're interested? Where can they
Mhm.
get your book? And my second question is, what makes you a artist?
Wow, I love all your questions. They're all so beautiful. Well, to answer your first question, like, yeah, the bakery is a lot of times not run by me, so it's not best to contact me through there. I'm happy to share my personal Instagram. It is just A Sinchawla, and that's where you can find all the stuff related to my book. The book's available on Amazon, so it's just the title is The True Magic is Within. It should come up. It's available on Kindle, hardcover, and paperback. My paintings I actually don't sell, but I'm really open to, and I really want to start selling them. I do post them on Instagram, so I would say that's the best place to reach me, inbox me, and I'm always happy to like chat. And I love connecting with other soulful people. I feel it's just such a beautiful thing to do. And that's why I would say being a artist is many things, but I believe like at the core of it, it is really connecting to people on a heart level. I think it's being able to be vulnerable and being open like to who we are and not trying to portray ourselves in a way that we're not so that our people can find us. And I think that's what made us connect. That's what all the valuable connections in my life are with people that know me for me, not me when I step out or me when I'm trying to be someone I'm not. A artist is someone who creates things from the heart, and relationships is just another one of those creations.
I love the way you said that because that makes me think that relationships are art as well. And we don't ever think of them that way. And we don't
Mhm.
really say that. But thank you for giving me this realization that relationships are art because they take so much of our heart and
Mhm.
they take collaboration and they take investment and art takes all the same things. So that is beautiful. Thank you for sharing where people can find you. Thank you, Anisha, for being on my
Thank you.
podcast. I'm
Oh,
so
thank
happy that
you.
we finally did this.
Thank you for having me. I feel like we could chat for like 3 hours and I wouldn't even know where time has gone.
Exactly, all the time, man.